Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Karateka. This is a remake of an old game that was released on the Apple II by a man by the name of Jordan Mechner. Perhaps you know him, perhaps you do not. He is responsible for the Prince of Persia series. This was the game on the Apple II that really gave him the breakthrough opportunity to go and develop the Prince of Persia series. And there are a couple of things, certainly in the original version of this game, that you can definitely see influenced the Prince of Persia series. They were both hybrids of fighting games and platformers to some degree. Karateka was all about going to rescue your lost love, and you had to beat up a bunch of people to do it, basically. And you had to avoid a few environmental hazards, and once you died, that was it. You were dead. So they managed to remake it, and it's actually by Liquid, one of my favorite old-school developers. They made Battle Realms, if you remember correctly. So good. One of my favorite RTS ever. And it's also got the composer from Civilization 4, that's Christopher Tin, and the artist from The Batman, which is Jeff Matsuda. Pretty cool, is it not? So let's check it out, shall we? Well, as you can see, it does actually have a mouse-driven menu. That's always nice. Can't rebind the keys. Not so nice. It does give you 3 different options there, as you can see, but once again, I would always prefer that you actually be able to rebind them completely. Here you cannot. Settings-wise, not really much here at all, honestly. I had trouble changing the resolution. For some reason, pressing Enter to select the resolution wasn't working. The only way to do it was to actually go down there and then click that, rather than just hitting Enter, because otherwise it just refused to change the actual res itself. I'm not really sure why that is. Alright, so what's the game all about? Well, it's very similar to the original. You run around punching and kicking people, and the fighting has what I would say is something of a rhythm-based feel to it. So let's go into the game and have a look at it, shall we? Do not indeed button mash. It's actually a terrible idea. There we go. Alright, so, what do? Well, basically you run forward, you then encounter people, and then you fight them with 3 different moves, which is punch, kick, and block. Well, 4 technically. There's a stun as well you can do if you build up chi power. Aside from that, it almost actually reminds me of a little bit of Infinity Blade-esque nonsense going on here, where you're running into people, they introduce themselves, you then go towards them, you then fight them, and that really is about it. Now, the first thing you need to learn is the attack patterns. And I'm getting horribly distracted, actually. You're supposed to listen to the music to help you determine it, but since I'm commentating, I can't really do that. So this could be a little bit trickier. Make things a little bit interesting. There we go. Now, you can't attack unless you successfully block, which is what I was doing right there. I was able to get his attack pattern down pretty well, which is always good. I'm seeing if I actually remember the keys for this game. Always useful to do that. Like, oh yeah, what's the punch button? Oh, you can use the mouse for it if you want, or you can just use A and W. It's really up to you, one way or the other. I actually find using the keyboard to be easier on a rhythmic kind of basis. Oh no! It's a hawk. Out of nowhere. Kick birds! Yeah! Come on, bird. Bring it on, I'm gonna kick you in the head. Punch birds. What a wonderful thing to be able to do. Here's the thing about these... Oh, God. Here's the thing about these kind of remakes. Is that you end up in a situation where you can't deviate too much from the original game, but more often than not, the game was actually so sodding simplistic in the first place that there really wasn't an awful lot to it. So expanding upon it is difficult without moving away from its roots. And Karateka is exactly that. The entire game essentially involves doing the same couple of moves to people and blocking either 1, 2, or 3 attacks that are coming in your general direction. And then there's those little kind of mini-games, environmental hazards that come up every now and again. Now, in an interview, the guy who made this stated that the game could actually be beaten in about 45 minutes. And there is a limited amount of replayability in the fact that when you die, you come back as a different character. Once again, almost kind of a little bit of Infinity Blade inspired, I feel. Come on. In you get. Oh, okay, so he's gonna do... Whoa, 4 attacks, alright. Fair enough. Oh, what? I'll say, like, animation quality-wise, like, just in kind of a pure fun idea, this game is actually kind of cool. You get to beat people up. It's pretty stylish. The art style's pretty good. Not as high resolution as I would have liked, certainly. I would have liked to see better. I think that if you can force AA on your graphics card, you might want to do that because the edges are pretty jaggy and there isn't any AA option in the actual game itself. And the simplicity is, I suppose, beautiful for some people, but for me, it does get a little bit repetitive. I mean, this is the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a minigame. Like, say, the combat element of Sid Meier's Pirates, for instance. No, that's the block button. Let's try and actually remember that. There you go. And yet they've built an entire game around what is essentially the combat from Sid Meier's Pirates with a bit more karate and rhythm-based stuff. That was awful. Try again. Difficult to do rhythm-based stuff while I can't hear the music. Though not impossible, as you can see. There we go. Come on. Yeah. Are you not dead yet? Apparently not. I'm interested to see what happens when you lose, actually. That might be something that is going to happen sooner rather than later, and then we can check that one out. And as regards to having a bite-sized kind of game, you know, I'm alright with bite-sized games. That's actually kind of cool. I mean, Journey is one of my favorite games this year. That was definitely bite-sized. I beat that in about 90 minutes, and it was a great experience. But I feel that if you're going to charge $10 or even $15 in the case of Journey, then the game better be amazing. Otherwise, you can't justify the price. And in this case, I have to wonder if there's any real replayability here. Well, down I go. And will this actually let me spawn as the next character? Yes, indeed. So that's the monk, as I was telling you there. Kicks in a nice little cutscene as the person we're trying to rescue. And then you can play as the monk, who I assume pretty much has the same moves. I'm interested to see whether or not he has different animations or anything like that. I do like the way the game tells a story without actually ever speaking. That's cool. To be honest, saying that's very much also from the original there as well. That the original actually had cutscenes, and that game was released in like 1984, so that's pretty rare. Alright, let's continue from where we left off. Interesting little mechanic to make that happen. I just want to know if he's got different animations. That's what interests me, really. Oh. Come on. No, too early, but I can at least do that. No, it seems to be the same kind of animation. It's just kind of a reskin, really. This guy ain't messing around. Too early. Ugh. Yeah, never play rhythm-based games when you can't hear the music. It's unhelpful. Come on. If you don't listen to the music and learn the patterns, then you're going to have a really hard time because they attack you very, very quickly. So don't expect pure Twitch to actually be of any use to you here. I can definitely see where they're trying to go with this, and I think they've achieved what they set out to do, which was a remake of Karateka in a modern engine with some really, really nice graphics, great music, and solid mechanics. The main problem I've got is that if you didn't play the original Karateka, I have to wonder if you'd even find this remotely appealing. You know, if I want to play a Kung Fu game on PC, I'll probably play Kung Fu Strike. I won't play Karateka, because Kung Fu Strike is, you know, a game. It's a fully featured game with a great combat engine, whereas this one, well, it's fully featured in the sense that the feature set is very small to begin with, and it's based around an old game. But it's also like 45 minutes long and has very little depth to it whatsoever. Please don't get punched by the bird. It's definitely challenging. There's no real doubt about that. But when I paid $10 for a game, considering the amount of competition that's on the market, I expect just a little bit more from it. And while Karateka is a nice visual experience and is solid at what it does, I feel that it just flat out does not do enough. This is the kind of game that I would like to play on iOS. You know, this would be a fun break game. Something nice and quick. You could beat in a lunch break and have a pretty good time for 69 cents or whatever. But for $10, it's hard to justify, I feel, for an awful lot of people, unless you happen to have knowledge of the original game to begin with. Come on. There we go. Certainly nicely presented, but again, this is the problem when you remake older games that perhaps weren't quite as complex as they need to be to succeed in today's market. I think people expect fully featured video games these days, and Karateka isn't. It's just, it's very, very simplistic. But ultimately, it is fun. You know, that's maybe the most important thing to say, is that the Kung Fu, even though it's simple, is fun, kind of in the way that the combat engine from Sid Meier's Pirates was fun. The sword fighting there is fine, it's just, you wouldn't make a whole game like that, would you? Well, no, you wouldn't, because that would actually be ridiculous. And yet, Karateka is a full game that's just like that, so... Also, these cutscenes are really weird. They actually look worse than the in-game engine, and I feel that they decided to record them in nasty pixelated video, which is an annoying trend these days. Just use the engine. The engine's gonna look better, especially on a PC. But there you go, folks. That is what Karateka essentially is. And it is available for the price of $10. It's a little bit cheaper on launch week. It's 10% off, so 10 bucks, 10 euros, and £6.29. I would pick this up when it went on sale, certainly. You know, when it was at 75% off, yeah, definitely. You know, because then it would be a little bit of fun. You know, it's a good 45-minute blast. You can beat the game and say, hey, you know, I appreciate what these guys did. This has a nice art style and a pretty cool silent story and great music, and I had a little bit of fun with it. But I didn't pay $10 for the privilege. You know, that's maybe the most important part. You know, people talk about games versus movie tickets in value and always say, oh, games are always better value. Not in this instance, actually. 45 minutes of gameplay is not really worthwhile versus a movie ticket. But it's nice to see the classics revisited, is it not? Karateka is not a game that most people will have had the chance to play, and the fact that it is now here in HD and made by Liquid is cool in and of itself. I just don't think it's really good value. My name is TotalBiscuit, taking a look at Karateka, currently available for 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. I'll see you next time.